Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Marvel. I'm Shazam. Chapter 41. Billy took Diana to the bedroom, and Diana curiously lay down on a big bed different from Paradise Island. Diana rolled around on the big bed for a few times, then looked at Billy and said, "Sure enough, how about you? Don't you sleep? Don't most men sleep?" At this moment, Diana looked straight at Billy, with a little expectation in her eyes. Under Diana's gaze, Billy's heartbeat speeds up uncomfortably, and there is an urge to jump on him. Although his sixth sense told him that Diana would never refuse if he rushed forward, but the surviving Billy would not do it. He is not a beast with a brain. Ahem. Billy cleared his throat, feeling a bit dry and itchy, and there was a fire coming out. Out of courtesy, Billy felt that whether he wanted to jump on or not, he should answer Diana's question first. He has the power of Shazam, so he doesn't need to sleep at all. However, Billy didn't want to answer that way. "Well, we also sleep, everyone has to sleep, but we shouldn't." "I don't know why." Billy, who has always been talking very slippery, also stutters. There are really some words that make him wonder how to express. If Billy was a person who had been educated in the United States since he was a child, then he might be better able to face this situation, but his soul has been educated in the East since he was a child. Diana said straightforwardly and without the slightest embarrassment, "You don't sleep with women." Billy shook his head and admired Diana's sharp language. It was exactly the same as in the movie. "No, we also sleep with women, but I only sleep with my women. This is a special relationship between boy and girl friends. If it is not, I think this behavior is a very shameful behavior. You shouldn't even think about it. Do you understand?" Billy told Diana very seriously. Diana asked puzzledly, "Special relationship between men and women. Is it like us?" Billy broke down a bit. "How can I answer this? Waiting online, 100,000 in a hurry." Billy wanted to answer yes, but they clearly didn't. In case the answer is yes, then will they really do it? Although it feels a bit convoluted, when you think about it, it seems that this is really the case. After Billy hesitation and thinking repeatedly, he replied, "That should be a very loving man and woman. They walked up to the priest, married and swore to cherish each other until death." After speaking, there was a sentence in Billy's heart that Maggie didn't know whether to say it properly. It was clearly referring to the relationship between boy and girl friends. How did it involve marriage? When did modern people become so noble? Shouldn't the feasting diet men and women pursue timely pleasure? Diana asked hopefully, "Really? Love till death?" Billy shook his head. "No, not always." Seeing Diana's innocent smile, Billy felt that it is better not to weave beautiful dreams for Diana. Otherwise, the dream will be broken, and it will be heartache. However, after Diana heard the negative answer, she asked incomprehensibly, "Then why did they do this?" Billy sighed. If Diana continues to ask him this kind of question, he would rather die. He is really tired. "I don't understand it very well. It may be that love makes people dazzled, so it is called marriage." Diana thought for a while and said, "In other words, if we don't get married, you can't sleep with me. Can you?" When she said this, Diana's big, bright eyes looked straight at Billy, and what she wanted to express was very simple. "That is, I want to sleep with you. If you don't sleep with me, I will take you to get married." Billy looked at Diana with some silence. The Amazon female warrior was indeed sturdy, a natural warrior, and the hilltop was about to be lost. "It seems that I can only obediently surrender today. Okay, I will sleep on this bed too, and sleep together." Faced with Diana's unreasonable card game, Billy was forced to choose reluctantly. He couldn't hold on anymore. After all, he didn't write a novel and couldn't make it anymore. Billy walked to the other side of the bed with a look of lovelessness, as if he was sacrificing himself and was brave. Diana looked at Billy, who was lying on the side. Her face couldn't help showing a bright smile, showing a triumphant look, extremely joyful. Billy was lying on the bed quietly, looking at the ceiling above. He could feel the gaze of Diana's gaze. It was so hot, and he felt like his whole body was burning up, and his small heart was about to jump out. At the moment, Diana was lying on his side, with her head resting on her left arm, her legs slightly bent together, her right hand throbbing excitedly on her right thigh, and her eyes staring at Billy scorchingly. Billy didn't need to sleep, and now he couldn't fall asleep anymore. He had nothing to say and said, "Do you know? In my hometown, I am not an ordinary person. I am a superhero, the guardian of the Temple of Eternal Rock, magician. Every day is full of vitality, fighting evil forces and protecting innocent people from harm." Diana looked at Billy in admiration, but she still didn't fully return to her last question. "Wow, but I'm more curious, when you men and women sleep together, do you still do something?" Ahem. Billy took a deep breath, almost couldn't help it, and sprayed out a mouthful of old blood. "Are Amazon women warriors so fierce? My actual age is actually only 14 years old. Are you talking about the creation movement?" Billy couldn't help but speak out, despite the urge to slap himself in the face. Diana replied earnestly, "I know, it's called biological reproduction, and there are physical pleasures." Billy was stunned for an instant. "You all know that, isn't your paradise island without men?" "Who told you?" Diana replied, "I have read the full set of 12 books on physical pleasure written by Cleo." 12. Billy had to give Diana a thumbs up. It's too bad. At least he hasn't even read one. "You don't happen to bring one or two with you?" Billy asked this question involuntarily. He felt that Diana might actually do it. However, Diana shook her head and said, "No, you won't like it." Billy retorted, "That's not true, maybe, I might like it." London, an industrial city shrouded in black smoke. Diana frowned and said disgustedly, "The environment here is really terrible. This kind of place is not suitable for human habitation at all." Billy also looked at London during World War I with some surprises. Although the traffic was very busy and very prosperous, the big chimneys that kept emitting thick black smoke made Billy not interested in living here at all. Coming to the street, Diana looked at everything around her curiously. "Is this the car you are talking about? It has 4 wheels and runs pretty fast. These people are wearing weird clothes. Why are those men and women holding each other's hands? Is that a baby? The little one is so cute. This is the first time I've seen it." Quote. Diana walked on the street quite excitedly. Her mouth never came down. She had completely transformed into 100,000 Ys. Billy followed the curious baby Diana every step of the way. Her pace was very fast. If she didn't pay attention, she might not know where she went. After a while, Diana's excitement finally stopped. She looked at Billy and asked, "Where are we going now?" "You promised me to take me to find Ares. The battlefield is nearby." Billy shook his head and said, "The battlefield is still far away, but before going to the battlefield to deal with Ares, we have to meet someone first." Diana asked suspiciously, "Why? Don't you just go right there? I will definitely be able to beat Ares, and then the war will be over." At this moment, Billy was accustomed to Diana's innocence, and patiently explained, "Ares is the god of war, the son of Father Zeus in your mouth. Do you think he is really so easy to deal with?" Diana definitely said, "I have a weapon to kill God. This is reserved by Father Zeus for our Amazon female warriors to deal with Ares." Billy looked at Diana Tsunere with a headache. It seemed that it didn't make sense. In Diana's eyes, Ares was a scum at all, and she could easily kill the opponent with a single sword. Billy really didn't want to hit Diana. With the little power she has now, she can beat her with one hand. I also don't want to think about when in normal training, General Antiope didn't simply take her down. Diana, please believe me. As a future person, I know very well that if you really rush to the battlefield like this, you will definitely be taught by Ares to be a human being." Billy warned very seriously. However, Diana asked inexplicably, "Teach to be a man? What do you mean?" Billy took a deep breath, suppressed his desire to go crazy, and explained, "That's it, you will be smashed by Ares. You have to know that Ares, as a god, is so powerful that he is absolutely far superior to General Antiope who trains you on weekdays. You have to deal with it carefully." Diana glanced at Billy angrily, then put her head away. "It's disgusting. Dare to look down on me." Diana expressed dissatisfaction in her heart and did not want to talk to Billy anymore for the time being. "Just looking at the posture, I thought it was the little couple who was arguing and awkward." Billy looked helplessly at Diana's angry expression. The file-sized sister was really hopeless. He bet that now if he tells Diana about Ares' address, she will immediately rush over without hesitation and prove that she can defeat Ares. At this time, after hesitation for a while, Flightman Steve on the side finally couldn't help but said, "Can I see my superiors now? I have to put the information in my hands into his hands as soon as possible." Steve was anxious, with sorrow, and really didn't want to see two big guys who couldn't afford to flirt with each other. When Billy heard the words, a smile came up at the corner of his mouth. "Contact your secretary, let's take Diana to change clothes first. Her dress as a gothic warrior is really eye-catching." Steve nodded. He didn't dare to violate the request made by Billy, the boss. However, Steve took a look at Billy. "You two are in super styled outfits. Are you sure you don't need to change it?" Coming along this road, the eyes of the men and women on the street were all caught by the two of you. Someone hit the street light, somebody had an accident while driving, and so on. It was all caused by the two of you. Steve opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he chose to shut up obediently and be a quiet kid. Billy patted Diana on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Let's go, take you to try the strange clothes in your eyes, I think you will like it." Clothing. Diana's eyes lit up instantly, and she had long wanted to try those weird and beautiful clothes. Now that I heard Billy's suggestion, my mood instantly became more beautiful, and Billy's sulking suffocation didn't regenerate. However, Diana still said "Sunere. I have said in advance, after trying the clothes, I will take me to find Ares on the battlefield." Billy smiled and nodded silently. Diana was determined to have a bargain with Ares. In fact, Billy wanted to tell Diana that Ares was not on the battlefield. Soon, under the leadership of Steve, Billy and Diana came to the clothing store. Looking at the dazzling array of clothes, Billy noticed that there were small stars shining in Diana's eyes. Billy looked at Diana's happy look, and suddenly felt that he was too witty. Sure enough, a woman is a woman, and she loves shopping for clothes by nature. At the moment, Steve's female secretary has also come to the clothing store. Billy felt that if it was Diana herself, in her little white situation, she absolutely didn't even know how to wear the clothes, and someone had to help. In fact, Billy hoped that he would help Diana change clothes by himself. Who am I this kind of person? However, Steve is as bad as the one in the movie. He found a fat female secretary like a pig. Doesn't he know the real purpose of the secretary? Diana looked at Steve's secretary questioningly and asked, "Who are you?" The secretary replied with a professional smile, "I am Mr. Steve's secretary, Debbie, to help you choose clothes." Diana asked curiously, "What is a secretary?" Debbie gave Diana a strange look. Maybe this strangely dressed beauty is really an indigenous from a primitive African tribe. However, as a qualified secretary, she did not ask questions. Instead, she replied, "Secretary, just do everything. I will go wherever Mr. Steve asks me, and I will do what I ask." "Oh, do everything." Billy glanced at Steve thoughtfully. "It turns out you like this bite, it's a bit unique, admire it." Steve knew instantly, and immediately shook his head and said, No, don't get me wrong, the relationship between us is very pure." Billy patted Steve's shoulder with a look that "I understand, everyone is a man, I understand, don't be embarrassed." Steve's face suddenly turned dark. Malgobies, even if he jumped into the dark Thames, he couldn't clean it. At this moment, Diana nodded to Debbie, and once again burst out an amazing sentence, "In our place, this is called a slave." Billy was speechless, and the corners of Steve's mouth twitched, and Debbie's smile instantly drooped. At this moment, Debbie's mood was like eating a fly and stepping on shit. It was too hurtful. "I will bear it." Ahem. Billy stood up and said slowly, "Let's go try on clothes." Diana stopped continuing the topic of secretary in an instant, and rushed to the strange clothes with enthusiasm. Steve comforted his secretary, then followed with Debbie. Diana walked to a corset, stroked the smooth and tight fabric, and asked curiously, "Is this the armor of your country? Can it be so thin and light to defend against weapons?" Debbie raised a professional smile again and explained, "This is plastic clothing. This is fashionable. This is to help you tighten your belly." Diana asked incomprehensibly, "Why do you want to tighten your belly?" Debbie glanced at her belly and said very depressed, "Only women who don't have a belly would ask like this." Suddenly, Billy said to Debbie, "Choose some clothes that you think are good, whether it is a dress or a formal dress, let her try it first, understand?" Debbie nodded, trying to behave like a very lady, "Okay, sir." After speaking, Debbie couldn't help but look at Billy a few more times. He is so handsome, much better than the boss, I really want to put him to sleep. Hold back. Don't hold back. You are a lovely lady. Billy smiled slightly at Debbie's weird look, then she will leave it to you for the time being, I believe your eyes. After speaking, Billy led Steve to the men's area, ready to find a jacket for himself as well, to cover his own combat uniform. Billy felt that for the safety of the thousands of girls on the road, he had better keep a low profile. Fortunately, Billy didn't know what Debbie was thinking. If he knew it, Billy would definitely feel like vomiting. Debbie clenched her hands involuntarily, propped her chin, looked at Billy's back with honey and happily, and murmured, "He just smiled at me. It's so charming. I'm going to be drunk." Fortunately, Billy didn't see this scene either. Otherwise, it would be either a big foot or a big mouth, which would force Debbie to fly as far as possible. It didn't take long for Billy and Steve, who had finished dressing, to return to the women's clothing section. At the moment, Billy wore a wide windbreaker and concealed a pull-out combat uniform. He became quite low-key, but he was still handsome and unstoppable. Steve also changed into his normal uniform, and also wore a gentleman's hat, and threw away the German uniform on him. Billy glanced around, but didn't find Diana, and asked Debbie, "Where is Diana? Are you still changing clothes in the locker room?" Debbie nodded, smiled brightly, and said sweetly, "Yes, sir, she is trying on the 226th dress." Billy was speechless for a moment. 226 pieces. How did she try? Steve was completely stunned. More, how much? Debbie said again very clearly, "The 226th. The corners of Steve's mouth twitched again, and he stopped talking. At this time, Diana walked out of the locker room, black top hat, white shirt, black tunic, black long skirt and black leather boots. All black, powerless to complain. But, I have to say, don't have a style. Billy looked at Diana, there was a feeling of lightening in front of her eyes. At night, you can take a sneak peek, think about it, there are still some chicks moving. Pooh, obscene, shameless, shameless. Suddenly, Billy felt that Diana seemed to be missing something, and his eyes immediately searched around. There is it. Billy walked over and picked up a pair of black eye frames, and put them on Diana. 2 steps back, and looking at Diana again, Billy nodded very satisfied, more lovely and moving. Yes, after going out, you think you are the prettiest boy on the whole street. Diana suddenly laughed happily. Really? Billy said solemnly. Really, you are definitely the most beautiful woman. Diana instantly felt that she was flying into the clouds. No woman didn't like men to praise her for being beautiful, especially the men she liked. Steve patted his forehead helplessly. Okay, even though I changed my clothes, I didn't go low-key at all. The turning head rate is absolutely 100%. After buying the order, Diana and Billy went to the Military Intelligence Department with Steve. Military Intelligence Department, meeting room. A thin old man who was at least 60 years old and had gray beard and hair gave a generous speech. Country D is an extremely proud country. Our armistice agreement. Suddenly, he saw Billy and others who had just broken in. His eyes stayed on Diana's body for an instant. The unique breath of the Amazon female warrior clan was too obvious, not to mention his half-sister. Without any confirmation, he can be sure that it is a mysterious connection in the blood, a unique induction. However, beside Diana, a handsome young man made him vigilant. The power of Shazam. The power of time. When did the people of the Eternal Rock Temple get in touch with the Himalayas Temple? And also came together with the Amazon female warrior clan. Now, about my true identity, has it been seen through? Billy is also looking at the old guy, Sir Patrick, the incarnation of Ares, the god of war, and that's why Billy came here. However, Billy didn't tell Diana now that this old guy was the target she was looking for. Some things require her to witness, see, and experience by herself in order to grow at the fastest speed. Steve walked quickly to Sir Patrick and handed over the notebook in his hand. Sir, I have a very important piece of information here. It is Dr. Maru's research notes. If we can decipher it as soon as possible, we will definitely be able to change the course of the entire war and even win the final victory. At this moment, Steve's previously suspended heart finally let go, and he breathed a sigh of relief. This extremely important piece of information was finally handed over to the boss, his mission was finally completed, and the disaster that the Germans attempted to create would surely be destroyed. Sir Patrick took the notebook in Steve's hand and looked through it pretendingly. "This is the research notebook of Dr. Poison himself," Steve said very positively. "Yes, I grabbed it with all my hard work." Sir Patrick scanned the high-level generals in the conference room, and raised the notebook in his hand and asked, "Everyone here, who can translate the text on this notebook?" Obviously, he doesn't care much about the contents of this notebook. Whether it is true or not, and no matter what the specific content is, it is impossible to disrupt his next arrangements. Everything is a foregone conclusion. Regarding the sudden appearance of Billy and Diana, he also didn't pay attention to it. His strength was too weak to worry about. As the god of war, Ares, one of the 12 gods of Olympus, he has his pride and self-confidence. He can see the details of Billy and Diana at a glance. Even if his identity is revealed, no one will believe that he is still Sir Patrick, the highest person in charge of the Allied nations, and no one can stop him. At this moment, Diana suddenly stood up and said, "This is Turkish and Sumerian, I can understand." As a family of gods and blessings, the Amazon women warriors not only possess the power bestowed by the Olympus gods, but they also understand all the languages in this world. Billy shrugged silently. If Diana knew Sir Patrick was the Ares she had been looking for, she wondered if she would still be so enthusiastic to help. Perhaps this is the furthest distance in the world. When the enemy is standing in front of you, you don't know it, and you stupidly help the enemy. However, what makes Billy feel strange is that the supernatural aura in Sir Patrick's body doesn't seem to be as strong as he imagined, it seems to be a bit weak. But Billy can be sure, absolutely above the current Diana. After all, Diana can't even sense the divine aura of the opponent. In a sense, Diana's situation is similar to Billy's situation. They both carry huge amounts of divine treasures, but they can't fully control them. Billy feels that he needs further confirmation on the specific strength of Sir Patrick. This time, what he needs to face is not comparable to the 7 deadly sins that had just been broken and already weakened to the extreme. It is better to be careful to make the Wanian ship. And when Diana stood up, the entire conference room suddenly became noisy. "A woman, how can a woman enter our meeting room? Get out now." Sir Patrick raised his hands and pressed against the crowd, and said loudly, "Please be quiet, since this lady can understand Turkish and Sumerian, why don't we let her give it a try?" With the opening of Sir Patrick, the people also have to shut up, the boss said so, and if they then against it, it is not a play gooseberry. Sir Patrick handed the hands of the notebook to the Diana, smiling when he said, "Trouble you, this beautiful lady, do not know how," said Roar. At the moment, the hearts of Sir Patrick is holding a kind of state of mind to play, want to see, were high hopes for Diana in the end be able to play what tricks. He did not know Diana really did not know her identity, and even Diana knew, he did not care. Anyway, as long as they make moves, he comers, all fight in the end, to see who in the end who play too. Billy glanced at Sir Patrick's eye. "Fox, her smile is so special, meow sinister, sooner or later you tear this layer of camouflage." Diana but did not think, took the notebook, politely replied, "My name is Diana, from Paradise Island." "Oh," said Sir Patrick deliberately pretended not to know nodded, but the hearts of little uncomfortable. "Courageous enough, direct yourself first, this is my challenge to you." In fact, Diana is just a simple self-introduction only. She really did not think too much, really have to admire the brain make of the contents of Sir Patrick. Billy shook his head, which does not express any opinion. Diana worldly, no heart for anyone preparedness. He said simply, "It is silly sweet white. One day, she will suffer because of the lessons, so grow up." Diana turned the notebook side, the side of the solution, said, "This is a recipe that can be a new kind of synthesis gas, mustard gas." They replaced the hydrogen sulfur, making the lethal poison gas becomes more powerful, the original gas masks will no longer play any role. It's above also said they were ready to release huge amounts of mustard gas that power at the front. "We should now immediately go to the front line, kill Ares, stop the war." Billy touched his forehead, went to Diana's side, the notebook through Steve, then took Diana went to the side. He felt that Diana can shut up. Ares's face in front of say kill him, this kind of thing. It is estimated that Diana did, really fearless, I be served. Billy Sir Patrick looked at each other's face as very calm, but also directed at Billy exposed a friendly smile, did not say kill Diana because he caused any emotional fluctuations. Be followed. Billy and Diana turned back in the last moment, the eyes of Sir Patrick Henley directly flashed a light. Magi. Long wings are not hard, he would dare God of War Ares face that kill him, it is entirely red fruit provocation, it is not looked down on him. Sir Patrick was very angry, very serious consequences. In short, he made a big mistake. At this time, Steve holding a notebook, he walked in front of Sir Patrick again, sternly and said, Sir, we have to find a place to concoctions gas weapons as soon as possible, and then completely destroyed off. He witnessed the power of this gas, and know how horrible that there are, he must stop it, even though he was just a little captain. Sir Patrick said in a deep voice, according to the latest information, the German General Ludendorff is now in Billy. However, we cannot send troops to Billy, which was occupied by the Day country, because we are negotiating the German surrender. Stop the German gas bombs. Joke. This was planned by me. In order to be able to successfully release the German gas bombs, I also deliberately let other high-level German generals surrender, and promised to sign the surrender agreement of the Allies. After the gas bombs were dropped, the war was restarted immediately, and all humans in this world were destroyed in one fell swoop. You know, Ares's real purpose in starting the war is to destroy the whole world. Steve became anxious when he heard the words, Sir, I have seen the power of that kind of poisonous gas. Once it is put into use, soldiers on both sides will suffer. No one is spared, and no one can survive. Sir Patrick looked helpless and said embarrassingly, This is the mission of a soldier, Captain, we must take care of the overall situation. In fact, what he wanted was this result. Soldiers on both sides had to die, and innocent civilians would also have to die. For him, there is no such thing as an enemy or an enemy. They are all ants. This is a fun game, a game that can let him pass the boring time. Now, everything is ready, no one can destroy it. But Steve still didn't give up, and pleaded bitterly, Send me. Just have an assistant. Give me a chance to stop Ludendorff's actions by myself. Sir Patrick was suddenly upset. Extraordinary, who do you think you are? A captain of the Air Force really regards himself as the savior. This is Lao Tzu's plan. What qualifications do you have to set the table with me? Sir Patrick sullenly yelled, Captain, are you crazy? The war has reached its final stage. No one can make any extra troubles before the German army signs the surrender letter. Please figure out what is the top priority in this situation, and nothing else can be done. Don't even think about it. This is an order. Sir Patrick gave Steve a fierce look, and if Steve dared to be stubborn, he wouldn't mind shooting him straight away. Steve lowered his head helplessly. Yes, I understand, sir. At this moment, Steve's mood is very depressed. He did not expect that the information he desperately grabbed back would be such a result in exchange. He felt a deep powerlessness and heartache when he thought that there would be countless soldiers sacrificed on the frontline battlefield. Billy wasn't surprised at all about this, and he knew all the ways here. Sir Patrick is the driving force behind all this, and naturally won't agree to Steve's request. Even if you want to agree, it can only be done in private, and in your own name. Otherwise, the situation will become uncontrollable. In the film, Sir Patrick is secretly supporting Steve's actions. And the reason he supported it was just to use Ludendorff's hand to get rid of Steve's brain damage. Diana was angry when she heard the words, rushed to Sir Patrick, pointed to the opponent's nose and questioned, You want to sacrifice so many lives on purpose, isn't there life? At the moment, Sir Patrick's mood was very upset and he was almost out of control. After living for so many years, no one except his old son Zeus, the old fool, has dared to point his nose to teach him. It is simply horrible. After Steve heard what Diana said, he was immediately anxious, but Diana scolded his chief, maybe he would be shot. However, apart from anxiety, Steve didn't know what to do at all. None of them were easy to provoke, none of them were offended, so he could only look at Steve for help. Billy directly ignored Steve's help, and didn't want to stop Diana from the bottom of his heart. Diana was very angry, and she had to let her vent, otherwise, she would definitely vent on his head when she turned her head, and her affection for him would be greatly reduced. This is absolutely not allowed by Billy. In addition, he knew very well that Sir Patrick would never do anything at this time, and the other party would definitely not want to expose himself in such an occasion. Since the god of war Ares chose to play the role of Sir Patrick, he will not do anything that does not fit this role, which will greatly reduce the fun of the game. Diana continued to curse angrily. Does it matter if they die? In my hometown, the generals will not hide in the office like cowards. They will fight with the soldiers and die on the battlefield together. You should be ashamed of this. After scolding, Diana walked directly to Billy's side. Let's go, let's get out of here and go to the battlefield. I don't want to see these guys anymore. They are all cowards. Billy patted Diana on the shoulder. Okay, you calm down, you don't know how to get angry with this old gang, let me take care of it. Then, Billy walked up to Sir Patrick, then stretched out his right hand and greeted Roar, Temple of Eternal Rock. Billy, it's nice to meet you. At this moment, Billy has seen through the details of Sir Patrick and is ready to have a good time with him. Sir Patrick hid the knife in his smile and stretched out his right hand to hold Billy together. Sir Patrick from Ying Country, I'm glad to meet you. He had long known that Billy came from the Temple of Eternal Rock and had a close relationship with their Olympus gods. Otherwise, let alone beckoning Roar with him, he was blasted out as soon as he came in. Billy lowered his voice and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, I know your true identity, the duplication of Ares, the god of war. My request is very simple. Give me a box of large value activity funds, and I will take them to the front line. Otherwise, don't blame me for disrupting you. Although you are not afraid of Diana, who has not yet grown up, the Temple of Eternal Rock and the Himalayas are far more troublesome than the Amazons. Quietly tell you one thing. Diana still doesn't know your true identity, otherwise, she would have been at war with you with a murderous weapon. Now, do you make a decision? Billy looked at Sir Patrick with a faint smile, as if he had taken him down. When returning to the Temple of Eternal Rock to visit old Shazam, Shazam told Billy a secret after learning that Billy and Diana were going to deal with Ares, the god of war. According to the old Shazam, for unknown reasons, the Olympus gods could not actually descend from a long time ago. They can only walk the world in the form of duplication, and their strength is limited. Simply put, although the duplication of Ares, the god of war in front of him, is so much stronger than his own, it is still within the controllable range. As long as he doesn't overdo it, he doesn't need to be afraid. Sir Patrick's face looked uncertain. It was originally a family affair of their Olympus gods, but he didn't expect that the Eternal Rock Temple would be mixed in. Maybe there is a Himalayas temple. Regarding Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One, let alone duplication, even if the real body arrives, he is very jealous. You know, Ancient One is the only big boss in this universe who has both the power of space and the power of time. Unless she wants to die, no one can kill her. When Billy came in, Sir Patrick had already perceived the power of time in the opponent's eyes, so he did not doubt the deep relationship between this guy and the Himalayas temple. He also perceives Billy's control of Shazam's power. Although he can ignore it, the premise is that he really comes. Sir Patrick felt that if he didn't agree to Billy's request, Billy and Diana would definitely trouble him immediately. Diana killed at most the Amazon female warriors behind her, but if she killed Billy, her duplication would definitely not be able to keep it. Sir Patrick's heart was quite angry. He was always the only one who counted others, but today he was beaten once by others. Although it was just a box of insignificant banknotes, he finally lost his face. Once it spreads out, it's a joke. Sir Patrick snorted. Tonight, I will send you the money. Remember what you said, if you dare to play with me, don't blame me for being rude to you. Even if your master, old Shazam, comes, you won't be able to keep you. Quote. A word is for sure, see you tonight. With a smile on his face, Billy turned to call Roar to Steve and Diana, and left the meeting room directly. After leaving the conference room, Diana couldn't wait to ask Billy, shall we go to the battlefield now? The General Ludendorff who wants to put poison gas must be Ares. As long as he is killed, the war can end. Billy is not surprised that Diana would think this way. After all, under inertial thinking, everyone tends to think that the most brutal one is the ultimate boss. But in fact, the real big boss is generally hidden deep, and will never be easily discovered, otherwise how can he enjoy the game behind the scenes? If he hadn't watched the movie beforehand, Billy would have thought that General Ludendorff was the incarnation of Ares, the god of war, and would never have thought of Sir Patrick, a good man, who wanted to end the war. Be patient, and when we are ready, we will set off right away. Then, Billy said to Steve, gather your brothers and take Diana and me to the Billy battlefield where General Ludendorff is located. As for the operation funds, Sir Patrick will send it over tonight. After Steve heard what Billy said, the flame of hope that had been extinguished in his heart instantly burned, and said excitedly, great, with your help, our action will definitely be successful. He had seen the horror of Billy and Diana on the Paradise Island. They were indestructible, powerful, and amazingly fast. Steve can be sure that if Billy and Diana, these two big bosses, are on the battlefield, they will definitely become a nightmare for the enemy, and no one can stop their madness. As for why Billy asked Steve to find a helper, because Billy needs a guide, a spy, logistics, and so on. Even though he is on the battlefield, Billy has to make him as relaxing and comfortable as traveling. He will only take action when he finally fights the big boss. At night, a bar. Sir Patrick drove to the door of the bar alone. Billy Perception noticed the approach of Sir Patrick, and Diana walked out of the bar ahead of time. Sir Patrick walked out of the car with a suitcase and hummed angrily, yes, you need funds for action. I hope you will strictly abide by our agreement. Billy took the big suitcase in Sir Patrick's hand, and opened the suitcase with a crack, and saw that it was full of pounds, and at least 100 pieces, and even 1,000 pieces. You know, during the First World War, the British pound was very valuable, and 1 pound was equivalent to $5. Billy was very happy in his heart. He was really developed this time, he became rich overnight. Looking back, you can think about what the money can be used for, such as buying land and buying a house. After a few decades, the money has definitely been increased by many times. Getting rich, heading to the pinnacle of life, is now in sight. Snapped. Billy closed the suitcase, with a sly smile on his lips. Thank you, I will definitely not disrupt you in the future, but will directly destroy your duplication. Before he could say anything, Billy threw the suitcase in his hand into the car that Sir Patrick drove over, and at the same time clenched his fists, and rushed towards Sir Patrick. The power of Shazam quickly circulated in Billy's body, and his arrogant aura instantly skyrocketed. Sir Patrick and Diana were all startled at once. Bang bang bang. Billy's fist hits Sir Patrick's chest like a violent storm, and the sound of broken bones can still be heard faintly. Sir Patrick's body traversed a parabola in the air and slammed heavily on the street not far away. His entire chest was completely sunken. As the incident happened suddenly, Sir Patrick did not react at all. However, in order not to be noticed, Billy's offensive power is also quite limited, otherwise he will definitely be able to severely injure the opponent in one fell swoop. Boom! Sir Patrick stood up abruptly, and the terrifying power suddenly rose, causing gusts of wind, and the clothes on his body were hunting. At this moment, Sir Patrick stared at Billy grimly, burning with anger, gritted his teeth and roared, "Asshole, dare to play with me and seek death." Billy laughed and said, "You are the one playing, Ares, the god of war." "What, is he the god of war, Ares?" Diana was shocked when she heard the words and looked at Billy in astonishment, her brain crashing a bit. Boom! Suddenly, Sir Patrick's clothes blazed ablaze, and instantly turned to ashes. The fiery flame enveloped Sir Patrick's body, and the shiny silver armor immediately attached to his body. Ares, the god of war, went crazy. Ares, one of the 12 gods of Olympus, known as the god of war, the supervillain in DC, Wonder Woman Diana's #1 enemy, the king of God, born of Zeus and the queen Hera, Diana is the same father-mother's brother. His duplication often turns into the appearance of a mortal, instigating wars among the people, because the disputes in the human world are the source of his power. The more wars, the stronger his power. Diana stared blankly at Ares coming out of the raging flames. After feeling the unabashed breath of the opponent, she finally knew that Sir Patrick was the god of war Ares she had been looking for. She gave Billy a stern look, annoyed in her heart. Although Diana is naive, she is not a fool, and her IQ is still online. Obviously, Billy knew from the beginning that Sir Patrick was the god of war Ares. However, Billy kept hiding from her, causing her to be chattering in the conference room for a long time before, feeling like an idiot. Since Sir Patrick is the god of war Ares, how could he agree to send troops to stop General Ludendorff's gas bomb release plan? This is actually a ghost behind him. Billy touched his nose with a little embarrassment, and explained to Diana apologetically, "Please believe that I didn't intend to hide it from you before, just to better stop this battlefield." Quote. Diana snorted coldly and ignored Billy. She changed her outfit instantly, with a magical shield in her left hand and a Vulcan sword in her right. Boom! The legs slammed into force. Diana turned into a flash of golden lightning and rushed towards Ares, the god of war, with a bright silver armor and only a pair of blood eyes exposed. Billy shrugged helplessly. Diana couldn't hold 10,000 heads of grass with this character. If he had told her in advance, how could he extort a large sum of money from Ares, even though the money was used by Ares without the consent of Sir Patrick? Besides, his master, old Shazam, slept for so long. In case the information goes wrong, the incarnation of Sir Patrick is the real body of Ares. Then he is playing a fart, just pack his things and leave. The ghost wants to die. Not to mention how powerful Ares's real body is. With just one characteristic, Ares is already invincible. You know, the Olympus gods and the Asgard gods are essentially different. Most of them are gods of faith in the world. The belief is immortal, and the 7 deadly sins sealed in the temple of eternal rock. Billy defines this characteristic as being rogue, bug-like existence. As for duplication, definitely can be destroyed, but the number of duplications. Kill. Diana's shield protected him, shouted loudly, raised the Vulcan sword in his hand, and the divine power poured into him madly. Bang! There was an explosion, and the sword of the Vulcan sword instantly ignited a golden flame, exuding extremely terrifying power. This Vulcan sword is a proud work made by Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsman, one of the 12 gods of Olympus. It is named after its title and possesses extremely terrifying power. Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship, is an extraordinary god, and he is also the son of the god King Zeus and the Queen Hera, and he has superb forging technology. According to legend, Zeus' lightning spear and Poseidon's trident were all made by Hephaestus. Diana stared at Ares, the god of war stubbornly, fighting to the sky, struggling to swing the sword of Vulcan in her hand, and slashed at Ares' head. Under Ares' helmet, his face was calm, and the corners of his mouth were still a bit of sneer, completely not paying attention to Diana's attack. He just raised his left hand, the god of war's glove was shining with silver blue light, and he grabbed the sword of Vulcan, as if he was doing a trivial thing. Kang! With a blast of metal, Ares easily grasped the Vulcan sword in Diana's hand, and still grasped it on the blade of the golden sacred fire. Diana was taken aback for a moment, struggling to pull the Vulcan sword back. However, the Vulcan sword remained motionless in Ares's hands, holding it firmly. Diana was shocked, and never expected that Ares's strength would be so powerful. The sword of Vulcan is like being firmly restrained by an irresistible force. Even if she has exerted all her strength, she cannot test out the limit of that force. Diana's heart could not help but set off a stormy sea. In her original imagination, she would be able to defeat Ares easily with her own killer weapon, but the current result was obviously not the case. A weapon to kill the gods. Ares glanced at the Vulcan sword he was holding in disdain, and laughed, "Don't you know? The armor of the god of war on my body is also an artifact created by Hephaestus. In terms of weapons, you don't have any advantage. Only the gods can really beat the gods. The Zeus certainly didn't tell you. My dear sister, you are the real weapon to kill the gods. The old Zeus left him and the Amazon Queen's children as a weapon to deal with my duplication." After Diana heard what Ares was saying, she had an unbelievable expression on her face. The development of the matter completely exceeded her imagination and completely broke her original cognition. "No, it's not true, you lied to me." Diana shook her head, took off the mantra lasso around her waist with her left hand, and threw it on Ares without hesitation. Ares didn't dodge at all, letting the mantra lasso tie herself up. For Diana, he hasn't wanted to kill him yet. Diana looked at Ares angrily, the golden light of the mantra lasso in her hand. She believes that under the mantra lasso, Ares will surely tell the truth. "I order you, tell me the truth." Ares slowly raised his right hand, and the silver-blue divine power followed the mantra lasso, leaping towards Diana, and then said very calmly, "This is it. I am not the god of war, but the god of truth, mankind, who has snatched this world from us, and they destroyed it day by day, and I, the only god who can see through this, is powerless to stop them. For so many years, I have been fighting alone, and I whispered in their ears, inspiring them, inventing poison gas, inventing weapons, but I never forced them to use it. It was the war that they provoked. What I did was to plan an armistice agreement that they would never abide by, to make them self-destruct, but this has not been enough until you come." At this time, at the entrance of the bar, Steve brought his two partners to Billy's side. The two partners are relatively thin. One is Samir, a high-level spy with eyebrows, and the other is Charlie, a professional sniper who smells of alcohol. All three of them looked at the incredible picture in the distance with dumbfounded and shocked faces. Two warriors dressed up in the Middle Ages, one gleaming in gold and one gleaming in silver, but they all feel very uncomfortable. Steve swallowed and asked dumbfounded, "That, Sir Patrick, is the god of war Ares?" Although Steve had some belief in the existence of Ares, the god of war before that, believing and seeing it with his own eyes are completely different things. When Steve saw the true god with his own eyes, his heart was suddenly uncontrollable and terrified. The atheism he had always believed in was completely broken and shattered. Anyway, it is unacceptable for a while, and it must be digested well. Billy looked at the situation in the distance and replied casually, "Yes, that is the god of war Ares, but it's just duplication, nothing to be afraid of." Steve stared blankly at the god of war who seemed to be mad and cool. As for duplication and not duplication, he didn't even hear. He knew that the god of war in the mythology, Ares, really existed, so other gods must also exist, and maybe they are also playing a certain big shot. This world is too dangerous, how can mortals be able to beat God? Steve feels that it is very necessary for him to have a good relationship with Billy and Diana, two big bosses, to be able to better guarantee his personal safety. At the same time, when I drink with my brothers in the future, I will have another bragging capital, and I can definitely envy everyone. Billy secretly watched the situation in the distance, without rushing forward. He knew that Ares would not hurt Diana for the time being, and Ares wanted to pull Diana into the group. Billy feels that Diana needs to grow and go through some things. She shouldn't be like a 24-hour personal nanny, which will affect Diana's progress. In the distance, on the street, the truth from Ares, the god of war, turned into a picture, which constantly appeared in the mind of Diana Wonder Woman, making Diana feel extremely confused and entangled. She didn't know whether she should believe what Ares said. Could this be the truth of everything? Is everything I know fake? Ares continued to say to Diana, "Diana, I am not your enemy. Only I can truly understand you, and only I can truly understand humans. Humans have always been like this, and will always be like this, weak, cruel, selfish, greedy, and able to do the most terrible things. My desire has always been to show the gods how evil the mankind created by my father is. When you first came here, I wanted to get rid of you directly, but I thought that if you could see things that the gods never saw, then you would be with me. When we unite, we can end all the pain, all the torture, and the destruction humans have brought to this world, and we can make this world return to the paradise before humans appeared, forever." Ares's voice seemed to be full of magic, full of irresistible temptation. At this time, the starlight crown on Diana's head suddenly shone, making Diana's consciousness instantly clear, and all the blur in her eyes disappeared. Diana looked at Ares angrily. "You dare to confuse me, I will never stand in the same camp as you." Ares was slightly surprised, but still calmly continued to say, "Dear sister, I don't want to be an enemy of you, but if you are obsessed, don't blame me for being impolite." Before the words finished, Ares grabbed the mantra lasso's right hand and suddenly surged, turning into a silver-blue shockwave, which blasted Diana on the opposite side. Diana didn't notice for a while and didn't block the attack. Boom! Shockwave hit Diana's abdomen heavily, and the powerful force directly blasted Diana out. Ah! Diana let out a cry of pain, quickly relieved the impact, stabilized her figure, and rushed towards Ares again without admitting defeat. Hee. Ares smiled coldly, and slowly raised his hands. The ground under Diana's feet suddenly rose and fell like a turbulent wave, violently hitting Diana. Diana's speed was suddenly reduced, and she encountered great resistance. Ares's body began to float, and quickly rose into the air. Dear sister, you still have too many things to learn. Boom. Ares waved his hands. The bluestone slabs on the ground, steel railroad lights, etc., floated under the control of Ares and then lost towards Diana. The entrance of the bar. My goodness. Are we going to help? Are you sure our bullets hit Death God? Quote. Steve, Samir, and Charlie stared at the scene in amazement, and couldn't help but doubt life. Is this the power of God? What a terrifying power. Even Steve, who had seen him on Paradise Island before, was so shocked that he couldn't speak. It was shocking. At this moment, they all deeply felt the insignificance of being mortals. It turns out that in the novel, it is true that gods treat humans as ants. Billy looked at Ares's powerful control ability with some envy. He deserved to be a big boss. Even if it was just duplication, the battles of gestures were full of compulsions. Diana's fighting method was compared with that of one, completely like a savage and backward primitive man. Even the flight ability hadn't been mastered yet. At this moment, Diana's charge was completely interrupted, and she was forced to stop in place, with the shield in front of her, struggling to resist Ares's attack, with a faint tendency to retreat. To be honest, Diana's heart was quite depressed, and Ares's strength hit her self-confidence severely. As Billy said, as the god of war, Ari is definitely not so easy to deal with. It's just that she didn't expect that in front of Ares, she would feel so powerless. She had always believed firmly that she would be able to beat Ares. At this moment, her conviction began to waver. However, she still did not give up. She is an Amazon female warrior, and she absolutely allows herself to give up lightly. Even if you encounter unprecedented setbacks, you must rise to the challenge. To die is to die on the way to charge. Bang bang bang. The explosion sound continued, and heavy objects such as stones, steel, etc. continued to bombard Diana's shield fiercely. Diana clenched her teeth and persisted, but the left arm holding the shield was already sore. Kang. Ares's hands suddenly grabbed towards the void, and two god of war swords suddenly appeared in his hands. Let us see, what kind of god are you? Ares glanced at Diana disdainfully, and her words were full of sarcasm. He felt that although Diana was a second-generation god, she didn't deserve to be a god at all. Whoosh, whoosh. The sharp sound of breaking through the air suddenly sounded, and the two god of war swords in his hand were thrown directly by Ares and blasted towards Diana's shield. The sword of the god of war turned into two silver lightnings, wrapped in a terrifying aura of destruction, and passed through the distance of the void in the blink of an eye. Boom, boom. Two silver lightning bolts blasted on Diana's shield one after another. The unprecedented impact made Diana no longer able to stop. The shield blasted directly on his chest under the terrifying impact, and Diana's body was once again boom flying. Bang! Diana smashed heavily not far from the entrance of the bar, smashing a large hole, and a large amount of broken stones splashed out of it. The three Steves were shocked instantly when they saw this. The big boss is too scary. Big Diana was abused. How to break it? Boom! Suddenly, in the distant sky, there was a terrible power that shook the world suddenly, and countless people's hearts seemed to be hit hard by a heavy hammer, and their heartbeat almost stopped, which made people feel suffocated. Ares's power has skyrocketed, and the divine power in his body is running wildly, and his blood-red eyes are filled with a thick fierce color, and he looks down at Diana ruthlessly. Do you only have this ability? It really disappoints me. Boom! Before the words were over, Ares was like a cannonball that suddenly ignited, flying down from the sky, and slammed Diana fiercely. Diana was horrified, a little shocked by Ares's terrifying aura. Her eyebrows frowned, she felt such frustration and powerlessness for the first time. At the moment, not far away, Billy's heart shuddered, feeling that Diana's frustration was almost the same. If he continued to fight, he might not even have self-confidence. Billy felt that it was time for him to play. In fact, this was originally the battle between him and Ares, the god of war, but Diana rushed too fast and directly intervened in it. As a result, it was naturally taught by Ares to be a human like in the movie. This matter tells everyone that before there is no absolute strength, it is better to keep a low profile, not to mention rushing forward and being ridiculed before you have not figured out the strength of the opponent. Billy quickly raised his right hand, grabbed it in the void, and a golden scepter inlaid with a huge magic gem appeared in Billy's hand. This scepter is naturally from Billy's master Shazam. It is an extremely powerful magic weapon. Whether it is used as a melee weapon or a weapon for spellcasting, it has an attack power that cannot be underestimated. Boom! Billy bends his legs and suddenly exerts force, and the whole person turns into an arrow from the string, and instantly arrives in front of Diana. After Diana saw Billy, there was a light of hope in her eyes, as if a drowning child saw a rescuer. Billy clasped the scepter with both hands, and the power of Shazam in his body was madly injected into it. Selah! The golden electric light flew out, and instantly enveloped the entire scepter, and the terrifying power rose crazily, no longer rushing under the coming Ares. At this moment, the golden electric light and the silver blue electric light each occupy half of the space, and the two sides are competing against each other. Steve and the others looked at Billy, who suddenly shot with surprise, and suddenly couldn't help cheering for Billy in their hearts, hoping that Billy could blow up the terrible Ares. Boom! Billy's golden scepter and Ares's fists were hard-pressed together, and the sound of terrifying bombardment swept everywhere like a violent storm, making ears buzzing, and there was no other sound at all. The dazzling light was like an explosion of the sun, instantly engulfing the space where Billy and Ares were, making people see nothing but a large expanse of glare. It felt as if the eyes were scared to look at for a second. Gradually, everything seemed to be back to normal. The light dissipated, and the figures of Billy and Ares each receded. In this round, the outcome was evenly divided. Billy tightened the scepter in his hand. This was the first time he used the scepter to fight. It felt very good, very smooth, and very powerful. Although the Eternal Rock Temple is sparsely populated, it is still a huge force guarding one side, and it is somewhat precious, not so poor. Ares suspended in the air and looked at Billy, who was playing with him coldly. Originally, he didn't want to be an enemy of Billy. After all, he couldn't come in person and his strength was limited, but now he is bullied by the opponent, so there is nothing to say, there is only one battle. You are as disgusting, despicable, and shameless as humans. Billy faced Ares without showing any weakness, and laughed. Are you stupid? I am a human being. Who is more annoying? Everyone knows that it is definitely you, the god of war Ares. Among the gods of Olympus, the god of war Ares is definitely the most hated. He is described as a bloodthirsty murderer and conqueror of a defensive castle. It is said that the Queen Hera only touched a flower changed by Zeus on the Orenos step, and as a result, he gave birth to Ares. This operation was really slippery. The descendants of the Eternal Rock Temple, don't think that you can fight against the true gods if you have some god's powers, and you can't help yourself. Ares grunted and grabbed the void with both hands, and the two swords of the god of war returned to his hands again. I will destroy you. After the words were over, Ares was covered with silver blue electric lights, pointed his swords at Billy, and furiously killed him. Chang chang chang. Amid a series of metal humming sounds, a sharp sword quickly condensed in front of Ares. Whooshu. A sharp whistling sound rang out from the sky. Billy looked down upon the sword rain in the sky, and the golden scepter in his hand pointed forward. Shockwaves condensed by golden lightning shot out frantically. Bang bang bang. In the fierce confrontation, GNU and Shockwave shattered one after another, and the aura on Ares and Billy grew. Boom. A powerful aura suddenly erupted, and the attention of Ares and Billy were both drawn over, and Diana stood up again, burning with golden flames all over. Billy looked at Diana with some surprise. He didn't expect Diana to grow so fast and so fast. Relying on the will not to admit defeat, Diana bore the bitter fruit of frustration, and inspired more divine powers hidden in her body that had not been controlled, making her own strength greatly improved. Ares looked at Diana in surprise, but the expression on her face was a bit stinky, and it became gloomy in an instant. He didn't expect that his suppression would actually help Diana on the road ahead. This special code makes people feel uncomfortable, like eating a fly and stepping on shit. Billy looked at Diana with a smile on his face and asked, "How do you feel now?" For Diana's growth, Billy felt happy since he was his woman after all. Diana nodded, her face filled with joy. "Very good, it makes me more confident to defeat Ares. I said that I will definitely defeat Ares." An unprecedented fighting spirit rose from Diana's heart, rushing into the sky, sweeping away the frustration brought to her by Ares, the god of war. However, Ares's face was even more ugly. Maggie. My sister didn't take him seriously. Do you really think he is muddled? At this moment, Diana looked at Ares with a faint smile, and said coldly and ruthlessly, "Thank you, but you must die." When Ares heard this, the old face under the helmet was immediately gloomy. Male Gobi. He felt that his chest was about to explode with anger, and Kai Guouo's provocation was simply unforgivable. At the moment, Ares only wanted to do one thing, and that was to kill the two Diana and Billy. Boom. Suddenly, the golden sacred fire on Diana's body blazed abruptly, and her mighty power soared like a god. Steve and the others looked at the sudden explosion of Diana in shock, and their mood became even more excited, as if they had seen the scene of Ares about to be cut. Kang. The Vulcan sword in Diana's hand was shaking with excitement, thirstingly swallowing the rolling power in Diana's body, and the entire body of the sword was completely burnt. The blade of the Vulcan sword disappeared and was completely replaced by a blazing golden flame. Its attack power was far better than before, revealing its true power. At this time, Ares's blood-red eyes were filled with cold killing intent, and he raised the sword of the god of war in his hand. Boom. In an instant, the wind and thunder made a lot of work, and electric snakes flew across the sky. Click. The silver-blue electric light fell from the sky and smashed Ares's sword of the god of war with incomparable precision, filling it with even more terrifying power of thunder. As the son of Zeus, even if he was a son who didn't like Zeus, he still inherited Zeus's ability to control the thunder, but it was not so terrible, but it was still full of terrible destructive power. There was no fear in Diana's eyes, her legs bent, and she accumulated strength. Boom. Diana slammed into the air, and the whole person soared into the sky like a burning rocket. In the blink of an eye, she came to Ares, and swung the blazing Vulcan sword in her hand unceremoniously. Billy shook his head helplessly when he saw it. It would be even better if you could come with a bottle of Fat House Happy Water and popcorn. The standard equipment for the crowd watching the show. Facing Diana's menacing attack, Ares snorted, and the sword of the god of war, wrapped in the power of thunder in the sky, slashed at Diana's sword of Vulcan. This time, Ares wanted Diana to lose so that she could never stand up again. Boom. The two swords of the god of war and the sword of Vulcan fought against each other in an unyielding manner. Diana and Ares glared at each other, using their entire body to compete with each other, and no one had flinched. As far as strength is concerned, Diana is already equal to Ares after her strength has skyrocketed. As far as weapons are concerned, the sharp swords of the two people are made by the same god, which is difficult to judge, and there is almost no distinction between male and female. However, the situation did not end in a stalemate. Sela. The silver-blue lightning power of Ares directly leapt towards Diana's arms along the Vulcan sword. There are more thunder powers above the sky that are constantly being drawn to the sword of the god of war and attacking Diana. At this moment, the corner of Ares' lips couldn't help but evoke a triumphant smile, thinking that Diana would soon be wiped out by his power of thunder. Diana was very anxious, but what she didn't expect was that all of Ares' power of thunder was swallowed by the Guardian silver bracelet on her wrist. You know, this pair of Guardian silver bracelets is made of fragments of Aegis, which has a strong effect on the power of thunder, and is specially used to fight against the power of thunder of Ares. Diana looked at the Guardian silver bracelet in surprise. The accident came too timely. Ares's face turned darker, and he directly cursed the old Zeus, and the brother Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsman, who was against him together thousands of times. At this moment, Diana suddenly remembered a function about the Guardian silver bracelet, and immediately hit the Guardian silver bracelet on the right arm with the Guardian silver bracelet on her left arm. Boom. With a loud bang, the Guardian silver bracelets collided with each other in an instant golden light, and the power of terrifying thunder spewed out. This is the Guardian deity in the Guardian silver bracelet, and it is also from Zeus's divine power, which is far more powerful than the Zeus divine power controlled by Billy. Boom. The power of the terrifying golden thunder rushed out like 1,000 horses. When Ares had no reaction at all, he was bombarded in an instant. Boom. Ares' body flew upside down, and then he smashed a huge hole on the ground. The shiny silver armor was black with thick white smoke, the helmet on his head was directly cut into the air, and an explosive hairstyle was fixed. Ares was furious and furious. He had completely hated the old Zeus and the brother Hephaestus, who is also the 12th god of Olympus, and it was all about working together to calculate him. Maggie. Aris's figure flickered, completely disappeared in the big pit, teleported directly behind Diana, smiled coldly, and slammed the sword of the god of war in his hand unceremoniously. Diana couldn't react. She only came and turned around and put the shield in front of her. Boom! Ares's sword of god of war slammed Diana's shield fiercely, and the powerful force smashed Diana into the air again. This time, Ares made up his mind to kill Diana. After a sword succeeded, there was no stagnation, and he rushed forward again. A cold light flashed in Billy's eyes, and he rushed up without hesitation. Chapter 51. After Diana heard Billy's explanation that the war could not end, it was difficult to accept for a while. In her cognition, the human being created by her father Zeus is very, very beautiful. If it weren't for the god of war Ares behind his back, there would be no war in this world. Therefore, as long as Ares is killed, the war will end, and mankind will become as beautiful as before. This is certain. However, Billy told her that even if Ares was wiped out, the human race would not return to the original state, and the war would continue. The beautiful vision in Diana's heart seems to be broken by Billy. No, I don't believe it, you must be lying to me, right? Everyone has seen that, Ares has been wiped out, and the war is over. Diana looked at Billy expectantly with her last beautiful fantasy. Although Billy also hopes that the war is over, the truth is not. Diana, I know that you may not be able to end this matter for a while, and I don't need you to accept it right away. We can go to the battlefield to take a look. If the war is really over, then everyone is happy. If the war continues, then we will go to end it completely. What do you think? Billy made a better suggestion in a soft tone. He knew that if Diana hadn't seen it in person, Diana must be unwilling to accept the fact that human nature is sinful. This beautiful cognition has existed in Diana's mind since she was a child. It is deeply ingrained and is not so easy to change. After all, in a sense, it is a very cruel thing. Diana nodded and accepted Billy's proposal. It was just that in her heart, after the extremely hope arrived on the battlefield, the war was over. She wanted to tell Billy that the humans created by Father Zeus are all beautiful. Obviously, Diana never realized that Billy was actually a human being, and knew humans better than she. At this time, Steve saw that the topic of the two big men had ended, and felt that he could raise the doubts in his mind. If this problem is not resolved, he estimates that for a long time in the future, he won't want to sleep peacefully. Steve asked Billy nervously, there seems to be some inconsistency in what you just said. If I heard correctly, you first said that Ares, the god of war, is indeed dead, but then you said that Ares just left temporarily. What does this mean? Could Ares be able to resurrect? As soon as the problem came up, Samir and Charlie on the side looked at Billy nervously. Before, they had seen the power and fear of Ares. If this kind of existence can be resurrected, wouldn't ordinary people like them have to suffer again? This war is still endless. Their hearts are full of deep worries. The impact of world-class wars is definitely huge amounts of disasters. Although they are soldiers and fighters, they also look forward to the years of peace. No one wants to go to the battlefield to fight for the plotters. Every ordinary person wants to live a leisurely and comfortable little life peacefully and steadily. Diana frowned, her heart faintly full of anxiety, and asked very anxiously, Billy, will Ares really come back to life? If Ares can really be resurrected, then even if this war is over, what's the point? Once Ares appears again, war will break out in the world again, and the mankind created by Father Zeus will fall into disaster again. Diana was full of deep worries, her small fists clenched tightly. Billy sighed, the truth of the matter is still to be told after all. Billy didn't intend to conceal this incident, but didn't intend to say it so early. He wanted to wait until he stopped General Ludendorff's plan. After all, Diana had suffered enough today. In fact, what we wiped out before was only a duplication of Ares, and his real body is still staying on Mount Olympus. You know, Ares is one of the 12 gods of Olympus, the god of war, possessing the power to destroy the world, and it is not so easy to be destroyed at all. However, you don't need to worry too much, at least for a period of time in the future. Ares will not be duplication coming to the world again for the time being. If the duplication of Ares is eliminated, and another duplication comes immediately, then we don't need to act. Zeus, the boss of the Olympus gods, will definitely not allow his son to do such a foolish act. After hearing Billy's mixed explanation, the three Steve breathed a sigh of relief, but there must still be concerns in their hearts. Samir said, very upset. It seems that Zeus is also an old fool, letting his son commit sins. This kind of thing should not be allowed at all. Billy murmured. In the eyes of gods, human beings are like ants. They don't care. Ares's power comes from war, so he provoked war. These so-called gods are not worthy of being believed in. The three Steve nodded, and there was a consensus in their hearts, that is, God, none of them are good things. At the moment, Diana seemed quite silent. If it were normal, after hearing everyone's complaints, she would stand up for justice long ago, and would never allow others to say that her most beloved father Zeus was an old fool. Only a duplication of Ares was wiped out. This incident once again hit Diana's already wounded fragile mind. She didn't even understand how her most beloved father Zeus would allow Ares to do this kind of behavior, and that Ares should be executed directly and his body nailed to the holy mountain of Olympus as a warning. In short, Diana's beautiful vision once again has a crack. I don't believe it. If Ares does show up again, I will definitely kill him. Diana said very stubbornly. In fact, she believed what Billy said. She knew that Billy would never lie to her, but she just didn't want to accept it. This trip to the world, not yet over, has already made her feel very tired. One cruel reality after another is constantly destroying the ivory tower in her heart and the stalwart image of Father Zeus. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little dull, Billy turned off the topic and said, "Stop talking about this, Steve, let's introduce these two friends who introduced you. I didn't have time in the bar before." Samir, who looked like he was not a good person, rubbed his hands and introduced himself. "My name is Samir, a high-level spy. I am proficient in multiple languages and my specialty is deceptive. I am very happy to meet you. Today, I really opened my eyes." Vision. Half drunk and half awake, while drinking bourbon, Charlie introduced with some pride, "My name is Charlie, a professional sniper. I shot from a long distance, but the enemy never knows who shot it." Diana asked curiously, "Then how do you know who you killed, if you can't see their faces?" Charlie shrugged and said indifferently, "I don't know, but believe me, it's best to be like this." Diana despised. "You have no honor in your battle." In Diana's eyes, the honor of a soldier is more than anything else. Charlie asked without hesitation, "Who will pay for glory?" For Charlie, glory is not worth mentioning. Life and money are the truth. Diana frowned, and she had already labeled Charlie in her heart. This guy didn't deserve to be a fighter. At this time, the clever Samir decisively interrupted Diana and Charlie's entanglement on a certain issue. "Steve, what is the specific content of our action this time?" Steve replied, "At most 2 days, when we need supplies and passes to go to Billy, we find the gas bomb arsenal built by General Ludendorff for Dr. Maru, and then the rest can be settled by the two big guys." Quote. Samir rubbed his hands again and said excitedly, "Wow, this is really an easy operation. I believe this will be the most pleasant battlefield operation I have ever participated in. With two big bosses, there is no danger at all. After all, even the gods can deal with it, and there are so many activity funds to spend, which is really cool." The drunk Charlie seemed to come back to life suddenly, staring at the stars and said, "Steve, so many pounds, it's impossible to spend all of them. The boss just said that the remaining funds belong to us." Charlie put down the wine glass in his hand, rubbed his thumb, index finger and middle finger, and said with a smile, "Steve, you know." After Steve saw the international money-asking action, he instantly understood. "Don't worry, when the time comes, the three of us will be evenly divided." Charlie and Samir immediately said in unison, "It's settled, cheers." The next day, the dock. Samir helped everyone get the pass. Steve and Charlie had also prepared the supplies for the operation. The crew was assembled, everything was ready, everyone boarded the luxurious ship to Billy. Due to sufficient funds, Samir specially booked a large, clean, tidy and comfortable room. Steve reported to Billy and Diana, "The journey to Tipperary County is a long way, probably before dark, and my old buddy Chief is there to pick us up." Diana asked curiously, "Chief? Is the chief of a primitive tribe?" Steve shook his head and explained, "No, it's a smuggler, very famous." At this moment, Diana suddenly felt that Steve was very unreliable, a lie, a murder, and another smuggling soon, it's great. When Steve, Charlie, and Samir heard Diana's questioning, their faces suddenly became unsightly. But coveting Diana's strength, the three of them could only smile awkwardly. Diana looked at Billy and asked, "Do you think our operation will go smoothly?" Billy nodded and said with certainty, "Relax, our actions will go smoothly. I promise with the glory of the Temple of Eternal Rock that Steve and his partners are very reliable comrades in arms." "Just kidding," he asked Steve to find these people, "and if you deny them, you're slapping yourself in the face." Besides, Billy, who has watched the film, knows that although these guys do not look very reliable, they are all elites among the elite. Maybe everyone with a little ability likes to pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger in such a low-key manner. Diana glanced at Billy in a puzzled way, wondering why Billy believed them so much. However, she believed Billy very much. After hearing what Billy said, the three Steves instantly became more beautiful, and felt that in the subsequent actions, they would definitely use their abilities to show Diana's knowledge, and they would definitely not let Billy be disappointed. In the evening, the ship docked. Under the leadership of the chief, Billy and his party came to the camp for the night, pitched a tent, and raised a bonfire. Steve took out the pre-prepared materials, including the Ying national tea that the Day people like, the Day national beer that the Ying people like, all kinds of meat and all kinds of cans that everyone likes. Everyone was sitting around the campfire, enjoying the pleasant time before the action, and Charlie was still holding his sniper rifle and carefully wiping it. It's another day. Everyone packed their bags and set off. On the way to the battlefield, people fleeing with their families and their families can be seen everywhere. Suddenly, boom boom boom, bang bang bang, Billy and the others came to the battlefield and walked into the trenches of the army when Billy, the sound of fierce guns continued. A large number of bullets shot past the top of the head, and the shells exploded nearby from time to time, setting off countless pieces of soil and gravel. Even if they were hiding in the trenches, there was the result of not being able to hide in the dust. A few hundred yards across the field in front of the trenches is where the country of Day is. Diana's face was very solemn. As Billy said, even though Ares' duplication had been wiped out, the war was still going on, and the severity of the tragedy was beyond her imagination. Although she is not afraid of crazy attacks by guns, planes, tanks, etc., ordinary people can't stop it. Seeing all of this, Diana had the suspicion of her cognition on her own for the first time. Suddenly, a woman with a baby in the trenches asked Billy and others for help. Help us, all the food at home was robbed, and many people were trapped in the village and used as slaves." Quote. Billy asked, "Which village are you from? Where is the exact location?" The woman replied, "It's Feld, on the other side of this no man's land." Diana on the side said without hesitation, "Billy, we have to rescue those innocent people." At this time, the chief kindly reminded, "Do you know what no man's land means? It is the German firepower blockade. If you enter it, you will die. So far, no one can pass through. The soldiers of a battalion in Billy have been stationed here for a long time. There is still no way to take the German army across the no man's land. If it were not for the order of the superior, they would have retreated long ago." Steve, Samir and Charlie looked at each other and laughed. Before they met Billy and Diana, they absolutely believed that no man's land was a dead zone, and there was only a dead end when they entered, and there could be no other possibilities. But now, they feel that no man's land is also a dead zone in their eyes. However, in the eyes of some people, it is no different from a safe zone. At most, it will be bitten by mosquitoes twice. That's it. Samir patted the chief on the shoulder and said very proudly, "I dare to bet you 10 pounds. Today, the soldiers of the Billy Battalion will definitely be able to take down this no man's land and kill the Germans on the opposite side. You bet, don't bet." The chief looked at Samir in a puzzled manner. He knew Samir's character very well, and he was definitely a guy who was unprofitable and could not afford to be early. He really didn't understand, where did Samir's courage and self-confidence come from, so he dared to make such a sure lost bet with him. Could it be that Samir's brain was twitched? Obviously this is impossible. You know, the main reason why Samir was able to become the most fraudulent lie king is because his brain is so special. Before becoming a spy, Samir's favorite thing to do was to deceive the feelings of rich women. He has a sturdy record and has never missed. He is a super invisible rich man with a lot of luxury cars, mansions, deposits and so on. It stands to reason that Samir should enjoy life after gaining so much wealth, but he just didn't. Instead, he continued to practice his liar skills and joined the military intelligence department, becoming a high-level spy among the enemy army. Just such a guy, who dares to say that his brain is not working well. If his brain doesn't work well, he wouldn't know how many times he has died. The chief looked at Billy and Diana suspiciously. After seeing the two handsome men and women last night, he felt that these two had a lot of backgrounds, as can be seen from the attitude of Steve and others towards them. However, after taking a closer look, apart from discovering that the two men are wearing relatively cool styles, there seems to be nothing special, and it doesn't seem like they can pass through no man's land. The chief was entangled in his heart. Judging from the lessons of history, he had never won a bet with Samir, which made him very reluctant to accept Samir's bet. However, this gambling game is different from all previous gambling games. No matter from which point of view, he is a must-win result, unless there is a miracle, such as a meteorite that kills the German army. To be honest, the chief wanted to beat Samir very much in his heart. This time, he saw the hope of victory, and the probability was almost 100%. After some entanglement, the chief's eyes flashed with determination, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, no problem, since you want to send me money, then I can't get rid of your interest, I bet." Samir's mouth evoked a sly smile, patted the chief's shoulder again, and said with super confidence, "This time, you still lose out. Obediently prepare the money." The chief snorted coldly when he heard the words, and said unconvincedly, "You just have to be a bit better at your mouth. If you can do it with a real gun, I will destroy you with one shot." The legend of No Man's Land is not just talking about it. Unless a mechanical unit is sent over, or a group of fighter jets is bombed, otherwise, the strength of a legion has to kneel. Samir still didn't care, but mocked with contempt and disdain, "Really? When did the No Man's Land become so cheating? No matter how I look at it, I feel that it is not worth mentioning at all." The chief glanced at Samir, and no longer wanted to talk to this braggart. The cows in the sky were about to be blown to death. At this moment, Billy and Diana both took off their wide windbreaker jackets, revealing the combat outfits inside, and suddenly looked extremely radiant. The soldiers around couldn't help but look over. With a handsome smile on his face, Billy looked at Diana and asked, "Are you ready?" Diana smiled, put down her long flowing hair, and a gust of fragrance rushed into the tip of Billy's nose, making Billy feel quite intoxicated. Boom! Diana didn't hit roar with a single move. She directly used her legs and jumped out of the trenches into the field under the smoke of gunpowder. The soldiers around, as well as the chiefs, were all stunned. Someone was able to jump out of a trench nearly 2 meters deep, and she was still a woman. It was incredible. Billy shook his head, and could only laugh at Diana's operation. Immediately afterwards, Billy's body slowly floated under the gaze of everyone, leaving the trenches very smartly and walking towards the battlefield full of gunpowder smoke. At this moment, there is no doubt that the soldiers and chiefs in the trenches are completely stupid, and they are all dumbfounded like statues. What did they see just now? A man who can fly. Do you dare to believe it? Everyone's hearts were filled with unprecedented shock. They looked like ghosts and couldn't help wondering if they were dazzled, and everyone was dazzled together. Steve, Samir, and Charlie looked at everyone around them with a horrible look of shock and laughed. It was really wonderful. However, they know that more exciting is yet to come. No Man's Land. Just a few hundred meters away, it is completely a vacuum death zone. Looking around, the thick gray smoke lasted for a long time, the ground was blown into pits and turned black, and the original lush trees also turned into pitch black charcoal. Ding ding ding. Bullets madly invaded Diana's shield and Billy's battle suit, constantly stirring up a stream of sparks. Diana Tsunere glanced at Billy, her look seemed to provoke Billy. It probably means, dare to compare with me and see who rushes into the German position first. There was a smile on Billy's mouth, and he was happy to accompany him, just let him go. At this moment, Diana didn't even look at her, and turned into a cheetah sprinting with all her strength. She disappeared from Billy's side in an instant, and she had crossed hundreds of meters in the blink of an eye. You know, after Diana's strength has increased, she has reached the speed of sound at 340 meters per second under her full burst. For the lazy Diana, Billy naturally had no choice but to catch up immediately. In just 2 roar-sucking time, Diana and Billy passed through the blockade with dense artillery one after another with great ease, and the German troops in the position had not even reacted. Boom! Diana held the shield and directly smashed a machine gun bunker. The massacre officially began. Boom! Billy smashed a cannon with a punch. Boom! Diana chopped off a machine gun tower with a sword. Boom! Billy smashed a tank with another punch. Boom boom boom. The strong explosion sound continued, and the German troops in the position were extremely crazy. 2 golden ghost shadows shuttled around them like lightning, and wherever they passed, firepower points, heavy weapons, artillery arrays, etc. were all destroyed. Those extremely sturdy fortifications or weapons, in front of the 2 golden lightnings, were as crispy as paper, and they were broken in one blow. As for the counterattack, even the enemy can't be caught, so he counterattacks. The Germans who had reacted rushed out of their respective positions and retreated to the rear, their faces full of horror, and their heartbeats were fast, for fear of being caught by the 2 golden lightnings accidentally. Billy was in the trenches. Charlie, holding a sniper rifle, immediately noticed the abnormality of the German position and shouted excitedly, "Brothers, the German troops have retreated, their fire blockade has been disintegrated, rush." After speaking, Charlie took Steve and Samir out of the trench without hesitation and rushed to the German camp opposite the no man's land, ready to play awe-inspiring behind the 2 big bosses Billy and Diana. At this time, the chief, who was still in shock, quickly picked up the binoculars in his hand and looked at the German camp, but at this look, his heart was even more shocked, and a stormy sea was directly set off. Oh my God! What did I see? 2 golden lightnings. Machine gun bunkers, large caliber artillery, steel tanks, etc. are constantly being destroyed. Special code. What the hell? Can these things be done by humans? The chief shook his head in horror, his face full of incredible expressions. But there is no doubt that the entire German army position has been completely plunged into chaos. The war is permeated, the original horrible fire blockade has completely disappeared, and the German firepower point has basically been pulled out. "Brothers, go!" I don't know which soldier or officer from Billy's time yelled, and then the soldiers who had been hiding in the trenches for a long time suddenly climbed out of the trenches aggressively and rushed to the German positions like screaming wild wolves. It may have been suppressed for too long and needs to be released. The soldiers' charge seemed extraordinarily fierce, a proper tiger and wolf division. In less than half an hour, under the joint efforts of Billy and Diana, all the German fire blockades outside the no man's land were cleared, and control of the Feld village was regained and the Germans enslaved were rescued. Innocent humans. "Oh, we won. We are free." The civilians and Billy soldiers were all joying roar in the village square, hugging each other and weeping with joy. The chief looked at Billy and Diana dumbfounded, his eyes were full of shock, and his heart could not be calm for a long time. At this moment, the chief finally understood why Samir dared to bet with him so confidently. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would definitely think that all of this had come out of blindness. However, even if he had witnessed all of this with his own eyes, he still couldn't accept it. It was incredible. It was a miracle, just like a legendary story. Samir patted the chief on the shoulder and smiled triumphantly. "Remember, you bet you lost to me again. You owe me 10 pounds, but don't want to go wrong." The chief did not respond to Samir and looked at Billy and asked curiously, "Excuse me, are you human?" To be honest, the chief already thought in his mind that Billy and Diana were not humans, at least they were definitely not ordinary people. He has been in the arena for so many years, and he has never heard of anyone who is not afraid of bullets and explosives, and has a speed faster than a car, like a giant. Billy smiled, definitely as a human being, just with some magical powers. The chief opened his mouth, but in the end he just said, "I need to digest." In fact, the chief also wants to have this incredible power, and also wants to know more about some related things, so that he can do his own smuggling business more unscrupulously in the future. However, after thinking about it, he decisively dispelled the idea. This kind of thing can be met but not desired, it is better not to dream. After a while, a group of villagers came over, thanked Billy and others, and left a group photo with Billy and others. Diana also took a separate photo with Billy. Field Village, Temporary Command Center. Steve looked at the complicated battle map and said, "We are lucky. After we won this blockade of the German army, we don't need to take a detour to the German High Command. The distance is only a few kilometers. Arrive." Billy nodded, then looked at Samir and asked, "Samir, how is your intelligence collection?" As a high-level spy with lying and excellent communicative ability, Samir has an unparalleled advantage in intelligence collection. There are friends or lovers everywhere. Samir put down the phone in his hand and reported, "The latest information, Ludendorff is about to hold a ball at the German High Command. However, this ball is just a cover. Ludendorff will order gas bombs during the ball, and the time is tomorrow night. In addition, the gas bomb will officially arrive at the German Supreme Command with Dr. Maru tomorrow from the arsenal, and then be dropped on the frontline battlefield in the form of a fighter jet. In other words, we can have a good rest today, and then we will drive to the German Supreme Command tomorrow to destroy Ludendorff and the gas bombs. It's great." Samir's mood was very relaxed at this moment, and he did not pay attention to the heavily guarded German Supreme Commander, who looked like a dragon's den. At this time, Charlie on the side raised a question, "One thing, how do we destroy those gas bombs?" According to Steve, the power of those gas bombs is very terrifying. Once an explosion, even a slight leak, it will cause the death of a large number of people, completely incurable, and lethal speed is extremely fast. We don't still need to transport these gas bombs back to China for disposal by the military. Anyway, burying them on the spot is a very unreliable way to deal with them. After hearing what Charlie said, Steve and Samir were lost in thought, which was indeed a difficult question. Billy didn't take it to heart. "Don't worry, I have already figured out how to deal with this problem, so tonight, we can celebrate the victory with the villagers and soldiers as much as possible." At night, the central square of Feld Village. Groups of bonfires were lit. The villagers and soldiers drank wine, sang songs, and danced and celebrated the rare victory, hoping that the war could be far away. Billy and Diana are sitting on a pile of sandbags, holding a bottle of beer in each hand. "Are you dancing on Paradise Island?" Billy asked Diana casually, but there was a touch of cunning in his eyes, as if he was playing some kind of unknown calculation. Diana nodded, and the image of Amazon women warriors dancing around the bonfire came to mind automatically, passionate, unrestrained, and full of wild beauty. "I also jump, but like them, it can only be regarded as swaying." Billy explained. "This is called a waltz, also known as the round dance. It is a dance for self-entertainment. It is simple and easy to learn, and it can also promote the feelings between men and women." At this moment, Billy stood up suddenly, walked in front of Diana, looked at Diana with a smile on his face, stretched out his right hand, and very gentlemanly invited, "This beautiful lady, I am honored to invite you. Do you have a dance?" The old fox finally revealed his tail. The reason Billy asked this question was to set himself up for inviting Diana to dance. Although Billy's dancing skills are not so superb, he can still grasp this simple ballroom dance at his fingertips. As for why you want to dance, do you have to ask? Definitely find a reasonable excuse. Stuck. Who? Am I that kind of person? This is friendly exchanges and fostering feelings. Diana didn't think much about it. She was naturally undefended and said with a smile, "Okay, since we are going to the Ludendorff ball tomorrow, we definitely need to learn to dance." She also stood up and walked towards the square with Billy. As everyone knows, it is unlikely that the whole body will be left when the sheep enters the tiger's mouth. Billy explained. "Now, give me your right hand, hold my left hand, and then my right hand will hug you. Your left hand can be placed on my shoulder, that's it." In someone's singing, Billy succeeded in taking advantage of Diana's, and felt happy. Phew, this is dancing. At the moment, Diana's roar sound absorption increased a bit, and the speed of her heartbeat increased. She can feel Billy's strong and powerful arms, she can feel the unique charm of Billy's body, and she can also feel the hot temperature between the contacts. All this seemed to make her involuntarily intoxicated. Diana said vaguely, "You are too close to me." For some reason, Diana couldn't help but want to get close to Billy and put her head on Billy's chest. Billy definitely explained, "This is the meaning of dancing. Anyway, Billy will never let go easily, let alone push Diana away stupidly. At this moment, if you use 4 words to describe Billy's mood, it would be, reluctant to think of shoe. Suddenly, crystalline snowflakes fell from the sky, landed on the ground, and landed on the clothes of Billy and Diana. Diana looked curiously at the scene she had never seen before. What is this? It's still a little cold on her face. Billy explained. This is snowflakes. In the cold winter, it will snow. Diana felt the falling snowflakes. She couldn't help showing a bright smile on her face, and said in surprise, "It's amazing. Paradise Island is like spring all year round, so Diana has never seen snow before." Billy looked at the innocent smile on Diana's face, and couldn't help feeling the urge to kiss. Unconsciously, the atmosphere between the two seemed to become a little glamorous. Diana felt the strange atmosphere, lowered her head a little uncomfortably, and turned away from the subject. Well, what do people do when there is no war? Do they dance like this? Billy replied with some regret. Yes, almost, definitely we'll do other things. At this moment, Billy's heart was still thinking about what had just happened. How can you follow your heart at the critical moment? Next time, I will never let such a good opportunity slip from my mouth again. Diana asked curiously, what is it? For example. Billy thought for a while. Although Diana's questions are simple, they are always strange. Normal people don't usually ask these questions. We will eat breakfast. We love breakfast very much. Father Victor and Mother Rosa will make breakfast for us every day, and let us leave if we don't eat. I also like to read newspapers. Father Victor reads the newspaper every morning. If he doesn't read it, he will feel uncomfortable. He has to finish reading before going to work. They will still get married, have a few children, and then grow old together. However, Victor and Rosa's mother did not have children, but adopted a group of us, a group of very mischievous guys. Diana listened quietly, and she could feel that when Billy said this, a special sentiment would unconsciously be revealed in his words and expressions. She didn't know what this affection was, she wanted to know, and she seemed to yearn for it. What kind of feeling is that? Diana asked curiously. Billy didn't quite understand Diana's question. After thinking about it, he thought he might be asking what it's like to live without war. That is a kind of leisurely and fulfilling, no parting, no bad news, and full of warm happiness, but it is often accompanied by a lot of nasty and trivial things. It seems that it is like this, and I can't say it clearly. Quote. In the snowflakes, Billy and Diana were dancing and chatting casually, looking at each other. Their feelings quickly warmed up, they became closer and closer, and the distance between each other was getting closer and closer. Late at night, the surrounding crowd gradually dispersed, the bonfire went out, and the singing ceased. Billy sent Diana to the room where she was resting tonight, and when he was about to turn around and leave, he felt Diana's gaze. After a while, Billy decisively chose to stay. When dancing before, Billy would have told himself very clearly that at critical moments, he should never be able to take it from his heart, and he should have it. Happiness has always been in the hands of the initiative and must be achieved by himself. Billy closed the door very simply and walked towards Diana without hesitation. It's just that the speed of the heartbeat has accelerated somewhat unconvincingly, and I feel very frigid about what will happen next. 10,000 words are omitted below, please fill in your own brain. When the sun rose, Billy and his party ate the breakfast prepared by the villagers. The chief drove the army car of Billy's time and took everyone to the German Supreme Command. About 10 minutes later, a majestic castle appeared in the sight of everyone, that is, the highest command of the German army. The chief slowly drove the car into the woods and hid it so as not to be spotted by the German guards. After stopping the car, the chief asked, "How do we get in this place? Or just go in?" In the past, the chief would never say such a mindless suggestion to go directly in. But after seeing the terrifying fighting power of Billy and Diana, the chief no longer feels that the German Supreme Command is a heavily guarded Longtan tiger lair. The chief felt that in front of the 583 of gods like Billy and Diana, the German Supreme Command was scribbled, and it could be dismantled. Billy said, "According to the plan, Steve will first pretend to be an invited person from the German army and mix in to gather intelligence to determine whether the gas bomb has arrived, and if it has arrived, where is the specific location. If you don't figure this out, even if the German Supreme Command is destroyed, it doesn't make any sense. Remember, our task is to find and destroy the gas bombs, not the German Supreme Command. It is obviously not suitable for Steve to walk in by himself. There must be a dedicated driver to drive in, just like the guests entering the castle now. However, our car is obviously not suitable for driving in. At first glance, it is known that it was an army car from the time of Billy. Even if the soldiers in charge of the security didn't shoot directly, they would stop them and go to jail. So, Samir needs to go to the open space outside the castle to get a luxury car parked there, and then drive Steve in with a big swing. As for how to convince the goalkeeper that Steve is really the invited person, it depends on Samir's performance. I believe that he will be able to pass the blunder smoothly. After speaking, Billy looked at Samir and Steve to indicate whether they were ready. Samir patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, I don't know how many times I have done such small things before. I promise to complete the task and I will never let everyone down. Just wait patiently." Billy patted Samir on the shoulder with confidence, believing in Samir's ability. As Samir himself said, this kind of thing is completely commonplace for his high-level spy. If he can't even deal with this little thing, he will just kill him. Steve put on the German colonel's uniform prepared beforehand, and set off with Samir. He also deeply believed that Samir would never let him go. Samir took a very luxurious Rolls-Royce convertible and caressed the luxurious car, which was not in his own garage. When he saw the car, he had already calculated it in his heart, and after the operation was over, he would find a way to transport the car back to Ying country. Anyway, the German army here will be finished soon, and they will definitely not survive tomorrow. You can't waste such a good car in vain. It is simply a shameful act of violence. As Samir was thinking, he drove the car to the gate of the castle. Old God Steve was sitting on the ground in the back seat, smoking a pipe in his right hand pretendingly. After arriving at the door, the soldier guarding the door really stopped them. "Please show me the invitation letter." Steve sits in the back with a calm face, paying attention to each other completely. Samir clasped each other tightly with both hands, and said sincerely, "The Colonel and I give you a lot of blessings. I believe other good luck will also come to you." At this moment, Steve couldn't help cursing after hearing the words. What's in your mind? What he wants is our invitation. Idiot, take it out quickly, don't delay General Ludendorff's ball. Quote. Samir said guiltily, "Sorry, I am very sorry. I must apologize 1,000 times, 10,000 times, my master. I made the most terrible and unforgivable mistake. I lost your invitation from the Colonel." Steve immediately put down the pipe in his hand and said angrily, "What? You mean I rushed over all the way so hard, but ended up losing my invitation?" Samir said again apologetically, "I'm really useless. I'm a bug, not as good as a bug. I'm the shit of a bug." At this moment, the soldier on the side looked at the long dragon photographed behind him, and waved his hand very helplessly. "Hurry in." Samir said excitedly, "Thank you very much, thank you very much, you are such a good person, and may the Lord bless you." Afterwards, Samir carried Steve into the castle smoothly. In the forest not far away, Charlie had been observing the situation of Samir and Steve through the scope of the sniper rifle. When they successfully got in, he immediately reported to Billy, "They have entered the castle." Billy sat leisurely on the grass with his back leaning against the big tree. Next to him was Diana, who looked like a little woman. "Very well, then, just wait patiently for news. Chief, take all our cans and other supplies from the car. They have gone to the dance party. They will definitely not come back for a while, and we can't treat ourselves badly." The chief heard this and said happily, "Howla." Then, the chief ran to the hidden car in a trot. The chief felt that this was the easiest task he had ever performed. There was nothing to think about, nothing to worry about, and there was food and drink, just like traveling. Charlie also put away the sniper rifle, and together with the chief, prepared a rich 0.9 picnic for everyone. He did not put the German Supreme Commander not far away in his eyes, and did not feel how dangerous his situation was. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Samir finally ran out of the castle, and after going round and round, he merged with Billy and others smoothly. Samir looked a little depressed at the cans and wine bottles on the floor. He had been wandering in the castle for a long time, but he had nothing to eat or drink. You are so courageous, you directly regard the small woods outside the German Supreme Command as your home, and you don't worry about being discovered at all. Well, who would let the two big bosses be there? After the chief saw Samir, he raised the wine bottle in his hand and asked Roar, Samir, do you want to drink together? Sit down and let's eat and talk. Samir sat down beside the chief decisively, took a sip of beer, then picked up a can of luncheon meat, and reported, Drive Maru just arrived at the castle with her gas bomb, and Steve is staring inside. Billy asked, as the launch time set. Samir nodded, I'm sure, after the evening dance is over, do we want to get in now? Billy said, it's not necessary. At night, taking advantage of the cover of the night, I can fly in with Diana directly. If the opponent's fighter comes out first, then kill the opponent's fighter directly. When Samilton had nothing to say, the big guy is the big guy. Obviously, this is the rhythm of flying directly in and doing it. Fighters don't even take it seriously. They do what they want. Ordinary people can't imitate it anyway. At the same time, Samir also heard another meaning, that was the action at night, basically nothing happened to them, and the two big bosses took care of it themselves. After eating and drinking, Samir got up and said, I'm going in first. In case something happens to Steve, I can meet him. In fact, Samir was worried about fancying his Rolls-Royce convertible. He had already decided. After the two big guys were in place, he immediately drove the 25 car and left the castle with Steve. As night fell, the castle was brightly lit. In the meeting room of Norwegian University, General Ludendorff was entertaining the guests he invited, and Steve mixed in among them, while Samir wandered outside, always paying attention to Dr. Maru's movements. Billy followed Diana's small waist, taking advantage of the cover of night, soared from the woods and flew towards the castle. Diana felt the sound of the wind in her ears and looked at the scenery below. She was quite envious of the feeling of being able to fly freely. Billy said with relief, You also have flight's ability, but you haven't mastered it yet. Diana said in surprise, Really? I like the feeling of flight. Soon, Billy took Diana to the arsenal behind the castle and found Samir and Steve. Steve hurriedly said, General Ludendorff has left the ball ahead of schedule. Now he is in the laboratory with Dr. Maru, and the gas bomb is in the warehouse, ready to be transported to the fighter jet for airdrop. Billy immediately ordered, You and Samir can leave first. Diana and I can resolve the matter here, and the chief and Charlie will meet you outside. Steve nodded and said, Then Samir and I will retreat first, and we will wait for you outside. After speaking, Steve and Samir decisively left and drove away the Rolls-Royce caravan. They don't pretend to be polite to stay to help, it is completely unnecessary, or it may become cumbersome and affect the progress of the operation. Billy took Diana to the warehouse where the weapons were placed, and found that the door of the warehouse was opened, boxes of gas bombs began to be transported out by the soldiers, and then they were loaded into the fighter jets. Obviously, Billy and Diana were a little late. Diana asked, Billy, are we going to rush to stop them now? Billy originally planned to destroy all these gas bombs before the Germans started, but now, this idea has been abandoned. However, Billy had already prepared a number of plans, shook his head and said, Let's let these soldiers move all the gas bombs to the fighter jets. After the fighter jets fly into the sky, I will give them all together with the fighter jets destroyed. If you do it now, it will definitely cause chaos, and there is even a possibility that the gas bomb will be accidentally detonated, and the gain will not be worth the loss. Once the gas bomb is accidentally detonated, although we are not afraid, Steve and the others, as well as the innocent villagers in the village a few kilometers away, will all die under the gas. We must avoid this from happening. Half an hour later, all the gas bombs were loaded on a fighter plane. On the high control tower, the red takeoff signal lights were on, and the flight crews who were already ready launched their fighters one after another and took off in an orderly manner. Billy looked at Diana and said, Now, you are going to kill Ludendorff and Dr. Maru, especially Dr. Maru. You must not let it go. Also in the laboratory, everything about gas bombs must be destroyed. Don't leave a copy of the information, so as not to be obtained by criminals. Diana nodded, expressing understanding. Billy and Diana immediately turned into two golden lightning bolts, one rose into the sky and the other slammed into the laboratory. Meow. In a blink of an eye, Billy had already caught up with the fighter group full of gas bombs. With a stroke of his hand, a circle of golden sparks appeared in front of the leading fighter. There is no doubt that Billy launched a cross-space teleportation technique. After seeing the golden light circle, the flightman couldn't help but stunned. Before he could react, he drove the fighter jet into it. At this time, in the sky of 10,000 meters, a golden electric spark circle also appeared. Once opened, a German fighter jet flew out. The strong sense of breath instantly choked the flightman's throat, nose, etc. His face turned pale, his hands suddenly separated from the joystick, and the fighter began to fall diagonally downward. However, this is not over yet. Circles of golden sparks appeared one after another at an altitude of 10,000 meters. German fighter jets flew out one after another, and collision accidents occurred. Boom, boom, boom. The violent explosion sounded like a thunder. All the planes appeared very close, and they collided uncontrollably. Under Billy's precise control, no plane was spared. In the bright light of the sky, clusters of yellow-green poisonous gas began to spread quickly, sweeping in all directions, but at an altitude of 10,000 meters, the lethality of these poisonous gas was almost zero. Before long, these poisonous gases will have no effect anymore. Billy was suspended in the air, quietly admiring the firework at a height of 10,000 meters, making sure that there was not a fighter jet and a gas bomb that could still fall down. Boom! Not far below, a violent explosion sounded, attracting Billy's attention. Billy followed the sound and saw the laboratory burst into flames and bombed. Against the backdrop of the fire, Diana appeared in Billy's line of sight. At this moment, Dr. Maru and Ludendorff have also gone to hell. Billy flew down, came to Diana's side, stretched out his hand to catch Anna, and soared into the sky again and flew outside the castle. What Billy didn't know was that the gas formula that Dr. Maru accidentally developed to strengthen the body's functions was still spread. Billy glanced at the arsenal below, then swiped a golden thunder and hit the arsenal below. Boom, boom, boom. The arsenal with countless ammunition was detonated, and the entire German highest command was immediately plunged into a terrible disaster and turned into rubble. Outside the castle, Steve, Samir, Charlie, and the chief looked at the collapsed castle in the distance and the flames rising into the sky in shock. At the moment, they could clearly feel the violent tremors from the earth. If they didn't know the situation, they would think it was an earthquake. The four of them know very well that this scene is definitely caused by the two big bosses, Billy and Diana, and the mission of this trip has come to a successful conclusion. Soon, Billy took Diana down from the sky and landed in front of the four of them. Billy glanced unexpectedly at the extra Rolls-Royce convertible, and didn't bother. When I got in the car, a group of 6 people and 2 cars returned to the village. That night, Billy and Diana once again slept in the same bed. Not long after, President Wilson of the United States issued the 14 Peace Declaration. Germany and Austria surrendered, and the First World War ended after 4 years. Diana did not return to Paradise Island, but continued to stay in London, England, choosing to continue fighting for the future of this world forever. She grew up, understood the darkness in the light, and knew that in everyone's heart, good and evil coexist forever and will not change because of the existence of superhero. Billy took a suitcase of pounds and started his enclosing property plan, but it was all under Diana's name. After all, he could leave at any time. One day, when Billy was shopping with Diana, the power of time in the time-wide pupil changed again. Boom! Billy's body shook suddenly, and the force of time like a tide instantly broke the seal, filling every corner of Billy's eyes. Diana could clearly see that Billy's eyes turned green in an instant, exuding extremely powerful power, which made people feel extremely palpitating. "Billy, what's the matter with you?" Diana asked anxiously. Billy shook his head and said depressedly, "Don't worry, I'm fine, but I'm going back to the future. I've told you before." To be honest, Billy did not give up. After all, after returning to the future, he can still be with Diana, but Diana has to stay alone for decades. Obviously, Diana's heart is very unwilling. Although she had known that Billy could leave at any time, she was still not prepared for this in her heart, and she hoped that Billy would leave at all. At this moment, Diana's mood was extremely silent. Suddenly, Billy frowned. Billy could clearly feel that after the turbulent power of time broke through the seal, it quickly blended into his eyes, making him more control over the power of time. After careful confirmation, Billy's heart suddenly became ecstatic, guessing that this might be the credit of the infinite seal technique. The infinite seal technique is likely not only to be used for sealing, but also to promote the integration of power. However, one thing remained unchanged: he was going to experience time travel again. Billy's eyes suddenly glowed green, and the horrible power of time spurted out in chains, causing the surrounding time and space to be distorted, and Diana was unstoppably pushed aside. The chains of time composed of mysterious magic runes continue to condense, and they revolve around Billy's body, and the space-time channel is about to open. Diana looked at Billy very reluctantly, and said with a very reluctant smile, "I am waiting for you in the future." Billy promised, "I will find you as soon as possible." The dazzling time green light bloomed crazily, extremely dazzling, and completely surrounded Billy. Suddenly, everything disappeared. After a while, Billy finally broke away from the time tunnel. Boom! The huge amounts of thunder burst into Billy's ears constantly. Billy followed the sound and saw a black cloud in the shape of a mushroom cloud appeared in front of him, and purple thunders were crazy in it. At this moment, Billy's brows couldn't help but frown, and he stared at the dark cloud defense layer that looked like hell in front of him from a different place. Maggie, isn't this the place of exile in the Master's mouth, the legendary Devil Island? Blood Orchid, Fountain of Immortality. Billy's eyes lit up in an instant, and his whole body was like an intercontinental missile, rushing madly, and directly leaving behind the matter of going to see Diana for the first time. Boom! In the endless dark clouds, those lightning bolts as thick as the file size of the arm became more and more crazy, as if they were blasting directly in the ears. Woo! The closer Billy got closer to the dark cloud map, the sound of the wind breaking through the sky was like standing at the entrance of hell and listening to the wailing. The sky is getting darker and darker. Even Ma Yun kept pressing towards the low altitude like going to a market. The clouds are getting thicker and thicker, and the sky is getting lower and lower. Suddenly, the sky dimmed, the ground darkened, and a terrible darkness tried to swallow the whole world like a greedy demon. The purple thunders became more fierce and violent, and seemed to have been eyeing Billy, the uninvited guest. Do you want to break in? There is no doubt that Billy didn't back down at all, and his life without going through big storms is definitely incomplete. Billy's speed is getting faster and faster, and golden thunder power surrounds his body, firmly protecting himself. This is the divine power from Zeus, which is extremely immune to the power of nature. Click! Billy turned into a Li Chenjiao golden cannonball, and slammed into the dark cloud belt that looked like hell. Boom! As soon as he entered it, the entire sky instantly turned into darkness, and countless bursts of lightning of different colors burst out above and even around him. Billy looked at the colorful lightning that suddenly appeared crazily in the sky with great interest, and let it bombard himself, instantly turning into nothingness. Not to mention, it really doesn't have a sense of beauty. However, the dark cloud circle is so big, Billy has reached the safe zone before he can enjoy all the different forms of lightning. Not far away, a huge island full of dense trees appeared in front of Billy's eyes instantly. In the sky, large and deformed birds are circling and flying. Roar! From time to time, terrifying roars from unknown beast came one after another. This is a dangerous Devil Island. Billy slowed down and flew slowly towards Devil Island. Wow! Below, on the surface of the sea, a giant octopus suddenly appeared, waving tentacles more than 10 meters long and full of suckers. Gradually, a group of people appeared in Billy's line of sight, as well as the skull flags. Billy guessed that it should be the pirate of the Caribbean who was exiled in the Master's mouth, and every night, he would become an undead skeleton. However, Billy is not interested in getting to know such a bunch of worthless pirates. Billy looked down at the entire Devil Island, looking for traces of blood orchids, but soon discovered that the core area of Devil Island was basically covered by thick fog. Frowning, Billy fell without hesitation. Suddenly, the corner of Billy's eyes seemed to have discovered something extraordinary. At this moment, Billy turned directly and rushed to the ground somewhere. Before the blink of an eye, an ultra-advanced fighter jet appeared in front of Billy very clearly. Kun Fighter. Anyone who has seen Marvel knows very clearly that the Kun Fighter is a unique combat weapon of S.H.I.E.L.D. It can be invisible and can go to the sea. Whether it is fighting or transporting supplies, the 587 cannot do without it. But now, such an iconic Kun Fighter has appeared on Devil Island. What does this show? At least, S.H.I.E.L.D. knows Devil Island. Maybe there are still a lot of agents on the island at this moment, and maybe they are also here for the blood orchid and the fountain of eternal youth. It's just not certain for the time being, which period is now and who is in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. One thing is certain, the time and space I am currently in is definitely not during the First World War, or at least during the Second World War. At this moment, Billy's mind couldn't help but a very possible, even truthful guess. During the period when S.H.I.E.L.D. was also known as the Strategic Science Corps, Dr. Abraham Erskine, a biochemist from the country recruited, was able to produce the Super Soldier Serum and anti-aging serum because of this Devil Island. The more Billy thinks about it, the more he feels right. S.H.I.E.L.D. must have successfully developed those two powerful serums because he found the blood orchid or the eternal spring water. Great discovery. Billy continued to fly forward, and then landed steadily on the ground, preparing to cut the shield. Suddenly, Billy stopped in place, staring at the yellow branch in front, and used a golden thunder on it. Caw! Next second, accompanied by an abrupt wailing sound like scratching the glass with a finger, soil and rock branches splashed, and a huge amount of black shadow appeared in the big pit. After the smoke and dust in front of him dissipated, there was an ugly and giant spider that had completely lost its head and had countless compound eyes. Billy's face was very calm, and he didn't feel the slightest surprise about it. No matter which version of King Kong it is, there is a characteristic, that is, this island is very dangerous, full of various fierce beasts that may be mutated or extinct. However, this is only for ordinary people. In Billy's eyes, it is not worth mentioning at all. However, Billy didn't like to be disturbed by countless fools who didn't know what to do. He mobilized the power of Shazam in his body, and the powerful power immediately swept in all directions. Crack quack, dodo. With the unfolding of Billy's power, the seemingly hill-like existence rumblingly moved. There were countless weird flight birds above his head, and a dozen branches rushed towards the distance not far away. It seems that there is something like a scourge that makes these lurking animals feel an extremely strong sense of crisis. You know, no matter how these animals mutate on this island, their instincts are still there. At the moment Billy's power was released, he showed one thing to these mutant animals that couldn't even think about it. Billy did not come out CFAJ, and the idlers waited to avoid it. Quite a while, Billy smiled faintly as he looked at the peaceful woods around him again, stepped forward, and walked forward. The law of the animal kingdom is like this. Whoever has the big fist is the last word. The winner can have everything, and the loser can lose everything. Not all creatures will choose to escape when faced with threats. Some arrogant animals often choose to be positive in order to highlight their status. Anyway, life and death are indifferent, just do it if you don't accept it. Roar. It seemed to feel Billy's provocative power. From some kind of mountain on the towering island, there was a sudden roar, accompanied by the sound of drumming. Exclamation mark. The cold-blooded animal sleeping in a certain cave suddenly opened its eyes, heaving the long letter, twisting the thick water snake waist of his bucket, and leaping out of the cave like a point of water. Callie. In a large pit in a cemetery that leads directly to the depths of the island, a skeleton lizard more than 10 meters long sticks its paws out of the pit, and a pair of green eyes is watching the direction of Billy's power. Yo yo yo. The furry orangutan that fell from the mountain not far away beat his broad and stalwart chest with one hand, smashed a small mountain bag under his feet, and then jumped up. Roar roar. A certain black behemoth roared and rushed towards Billy's location. Wherever it passed, the ground was shaken, countless trees broke, and it was a savage beast. Billy's face suddenly went dark. Maggie. Is this to challenge him? I wanted to let you go, but I just wanted to run into it to die. She suo. However, the big chimpanzee hasn't appeared yet, and another long and thick anaconda is the first to arrive on the battlefield. Call out. In the sharp tearing air sounds, a long, steel-like tail drew angrily. Boom. A big tree tens of centimeters thick broke and fell to the side. Billy stood in the air and glanced at the giant anaconda that was entwined with another sturdy tree, obviously overnourished. You don't have to guess, this big anaconda mutated after eating blood orchids. It has a body length of at least 20 to 30 meters, and its mouth seems to be able to swallow itself in one bite. However, the thing that caught Billy's attention most was that there was a raised bag on the snake's head that looked like a soldering iron head. Tumor. Wahiao. Billy prefers the former. which is the world of American comics, with Western characteristics, rather than the Oriental fairy. However, Billy felt that there was another possibility, a traverser who had swallowed the system. Looking at the bag on the snake's head, Billy's thoughts began to spread to the universe next door. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.